Bienvenidos todos! Welcome everybody to this special transmission because in this occasion we are honored to have one of the coolest and most patient editors-in-chiefs that we have ever known because, and believe us, it's a real pleasure to have once again Tom Peyer as our guest. How are you doing, Tom?
I'm doing great.
Excellent.
It's nice to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. And well, you know the rest of our merry band. We have the Night Boy, we have Zico, and we have Wookie in here. So the entire team is together. And well, first of all, I want to thank you, Tom, because we are running a particular experiment in this occasion. This will be the first show which is enabled for people that have problem listening to us. That's why you have subtitles. So this is the first subtitle show, which is kind of like a comic book. So how do you feel, Tom, about being part of this experiment?
I feel like I really am literally finally living in a comic book, and it's the only thing I've wanted my whole life.
Excellent, excellent. So we are here just to have some fun in this case, and we are already having it. So and see, we have also some particular questions in here. And Nightboy, why don't you begin?
Yeah, our initial intention was to talk about what's happening with the industry, about the corona and all that stuff. But since everybody's talking about it and everybody is, getting over and over and over the same questions, the same answers, we just decided that we are just gonna geek the internet out this time. We are gonna, how to say it, we're going to bombard you with a lot of questions about the Silver Age and some reference that we noticed that you have been making while writing the Grown Earth, Dragonfly, and Dragonfly Man.
Okay.
Yeah, and maybe asking you about, I don't know, some of the weirdest stories that you have ever read, because we noticed that you are making a lot of reference to Silver Age stories particularly, and making a lot of reference to Superman stories. So, and you mentioned to us that you are a kind of, how many kinds of kryptonite do you know? Am I right?
Um, are you asking me to list kinds of kryptonite?
If you want to begin with that, and how many kinds of kryptonite do you know? What's the weirdest effect?
Well, let's go. Let's see how many I know.
Mhm.
Because Mark Waid is like a computer brain 12th level genius at remembering every aspect of the Superman mythos. And I have like a sloppier approach to life in general. And I always say that when Stan Lee died, he left me his memory. But let's go with that. Green kryptonite kills Superman, or poisons him until it kills him. Red kryptonite, strange, unpredictable effects, accompanied by a tingling sensation. And the unpredictable effects last, depending on the story, maybe 24 to 36 hours, maybe 72 sometimes. One of the strangest, I mean, it's turned him into a giant and like a tiny person like the Atom, and it gave him, I think it gave him an ant's head, so I'm going to go with that. Gold kryptonite, one of the scariest ones, because it turns him into a regular person and it's irreversible. And why would you ever want to be a regular person? Blue kryptonite is fatal to bizarros. White kryptonite is fatal to plants, because they needed that in a story once, that the enemy was plant-based and they needed a new kind of kryptonite. And that's what they came up with. And I was with Grant Morrison one time, and we were at dinner, and he took part of the heavy paper napkin, and he rolled it into this little ball, and he said, "I have white kryptonite because I hate plants." And there is something called jewel kryptonite that I've never accepted, but it seems to amplify the telekinesis of people trapped in the phantom zone. Again, it was a one-story kryptonite, and I don't like it. So that's that.
All right,
So,
excellent. So let's keep moving with the questions, guys, and let's try to do it simpler because since this is a subtitled show, people are here to hear us talk, or actually to hear Tom talk, not to read us giving a lot of speeches and trying to justify the questions. So, Wookie, you have another question?
Yes. Tom, are you fan of Adam West Batman?
That came out garbled in the subtext.
Are you a fan of
the
Adam
subtitles.
West Batman?
I am a major fan of Adam West Batman. I love Adam West Batman. I think I've actually watched 2 episodes this very week. And it'll be funny to me for the rest of my life. It's a 54-year-old joke now, and it will never stop being funny to me.
What are some of the elements that you find timeless in that interpretation of Batman?
I think it was an early example of a show that was conspicuously art directed. The first 2 seasons are kind of beautiful to look at. I think it's an early example of a TV show that was kind of anti-establishment. Every member of the establishment in that show who is not Batman is kind of an idiot and utterly dependent on Batman. And the idea that the people running things in the world are idiots is something we're all familiar with. But it's funny and fun to see it portrayed 55 years ago. And I don't think TV shows were doing that back then. I love the liturgical quality of the first season and a half, where they just had a list of beats that they hit every single week. That repetition is just hypnotic to me. You know, they would start with the crime, and then we'd go to Commissioner Gordon's office, and they would freak out that some criminal is back, and then they would call the bat phone, and Bruce and Dick would be sitting there, and Dick would be learning some new language or astronomy or something, and then they'd have to make an excuse to leave because Commissioner Gordon's calling. They'd have to tell Aunt Harriet they were going fishing. And then they'd go down, they'd talk to him, then they'd go down the bat poles. They would run to the Batmobile, hop in it. You'd see them go down the highway, and then they would get to police headquarters. And the camera would just linger until this man with a fedora would walk diagonally toward the steps every single time, because they're using stock footage. So anyway, not to get too atomic and granular about it, which I already have. I love the repetition. I think it's extremely entertaining. You've got the trap in the middle, and the villains always leave Batman and Robin in the trap and go do something else, so they're not there to prevent them escaping. And it's just gorgeous. And when in later episodes they decide to mix it up, I think it's not as fun when they don't follow the liturgy.
Cool. Zico, do you have a following question?
Yes, of course.
Your mic is... oh, there you have it. Sorry.
After reading the first volume, in The Wrong Earth, we see the contrast between Dragonfly and Dragonfly Man. The second volume, Dragonfly and Dragonfly Man, show us the backstory of both characters. We see them when I opened the book, the comic book. I saw Stinger, but my surprise was that it was not Stinger 2. It was Stinger. But after reading all the volume, we see Stinger is still alive in that reality.
Mhm.
You plan to continue with that is the story, or you will be jumping between volumes with the present and the past tenses.
Well, the next thing you'll see will be another volume of The Wrong Earth. Jamal will be starting that this week, I think. And we'll go through that. I would love to do another Dragonfly and Dragonfly Man volume. So we'll see if we get to. It'll help a lot if some people buy the collected edition, which will be out. It'll probably be the first thing we publish again as when we reopen after the lockdown. Is the collected edition of Dragonfly and Dragonfly Man. And if we get some, if people seem interested in it, I would love to do more of that.
All right, Nightboy, let's go back
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah, there's a particular part, I think it's number 3 on Dragonfly and Dragonfly Man, where Dragonfly, yeah, it's Dragonfly, yeah, no, Dragonfly Man, where he has to leave Stinger behind, and he shows us a robot, Lady Dragonfly Man, right? And because something that happened something that came in a header of a newspaper, and Singer was all down. He felt kind of betrayed, and all of a sudden, all the story remind me of an arc of a World Finest, Batman and Superman story between them, where a character called Atoman comes into play, where Superman shoves Batman and Robin aside and says, "No, this is my new partner." And all of a sudden, Batman and Robin turns to solve the crime, right? And they ask Superman at the end of the story why the need to shove them apart, while the Atoman didn't do anything, and he discovers that's a robot. That came to my mind. That's something that you try to do an homage of it, or just something that was in your subconscious and just came out.
Richard Grayson, you are a first-rate comics historian. Of course I was biting that story. It was, I probably read that when I was 6 years old and never forgot it. Of course I was ripping that story off. But I can't get it by you because you're like a detective.
Not all the times. So you try to get some bits of all that Silver Age, some between Golden Age and Silver Age, to your stories in the part of the Dragonfly Man. It's something that you consciously do to see who's paying attention, who really read comics, or just try to instigate the readers to find out, to investigate, to search the net, and find out these old stories.
It's always going to find its way into my stories somehow, the Silver Age, because it's what I love. Because somebody said, I don't remember who said it, but they said the golden age of comics is 8. It's 8 years old. And you'll never love a comic book the way you loved a comic book when you were 8, I think. And I don't ever want to do like throwback nostalgia comics, but I feel the Silver Age informs and acts as a foundation of comics to this day. we're still looking at the danger rooms and fortresses of solitude and all these characters and all these situations that originated then. It was such a fertile period. And I have a theory, well, that it was such an imaginative period because it was the period where censorship was very heavy. So they couldn't attract your eye by showing gross violence and sexual material and stuff. They just weren't allowed to. So they had to come up with the Flash with a huge head, you know. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful that they did that. I'm against censorship in principle, but in this case, I'll take it.
All right, Wookie, next question, please.
Yeah. From all the Ahoy comic books, which is your favorite right now?
I'm sorry, from all the what comic books, which is my favorite?
From Ahoy Comics.
Ahoy.
Oh, from Ahoy. Yeah, of course. Yeah. I can't say which is my favorite. I'm the editor-in-chief. I would really be throwing people under the bus who are working on a comic that is not my favorite. I take that secret to my grave.
Like your favorite son?
Mm-hmm. They're all my favorite.
All right, Zico, follow-up question.
Yes, something that I love to see in Ahoy Comics is that you try to give the readers some kind of integral experience. Like you present the principal story, the main story. After that, you present another story, maybe in some comic way. You present a little prose, you present pin-ups, you present some kind of jokes. It's like reading a whole experience. Is that right? Is that what you try to do with this volume, or in all the Ahoy comics? Maybe with Edgar Allan Poe's Snifter of Terror.
Yeah, we do. We very consciously try to do that. My favorite, a lot of my good memories of comics, growing up and being an adult and everything, my whole life was the good memories come when the companies were generous with what they gave you for your money. You know, you'd have 80-page giants instead of 64-page giants. And my bad memories all come from when they cut corners and tighten their belts and give us the 48-page giants, you know. And I just think that feeling of bounty, of generosity, really helps people to enjoy a comic. And we've been around for a while now, a couple of years, and it's getting to the point where we can be even more generous, but we need more readers. And the more readers we get, the more generous we'll be, because that's just the way of the world.
All right. We are going to go to a final round of questions. We will go with the same order that we had before. However, before we go there, I want to tell to the people who is watching this, to people who is listening to this interview, that in case that you want to know more about the most recent launches from Ahoy Comics, you can do it really easily if you go, in this case, to Ahoy Comics, comicsahoy.com, which is in their main page. And of course, if you follow them in Twitter, you can find them in Ahoy Comic Max, where you will get the latest news about the latest releases and info about the authors, about the comics, and about all the fun that it's in these titles that are being published by, well, our great friend, who is not confessing which one is his favorite title, because it's really difficult to pick just one, believe us. So let's go.
I see.
Exactly. So let's go for a final round of questions. Let's go first with Nightboy.
Yeah. Uh, who would you like of all the writers that are in the field right now? Who would you like the most to write the next volume or a volume of Dragonfly or Wrong Earth? And who would be the
Oh man.
someone who you would never relinquish the duty of writing your creation?
Well, we in the first volume of Wrong Earth, we had backup stories, comics that were written by Paul Constant, who's a wonderful writer. He did that title for us, Planet of the Nerds, and he has another one coming up from us, which we haven't announced yet. So I can't tell you anything about it except it is so great. I was very pleased to see what he did with those characters. So if I'm not jealous if somebody else writes them. I'm proud of them. It's nice to see. It's nice to see that they translate to someone else's sensibility. Mark Russell is writing for us, and I think he's one of the very, very best writers of today. And I think that he would do a pretty good job with these characters. But it's as long as be ashamed to take him away from his own ideas, because his own ideas are so great. Second Coming and Billionaire Island, and in the Poe book, he does these mad little stories about the monsters who are on cereal boxes in America. Cartoon monsters they used to sell cereal. I don't know if do you have those there?
We know them, so and we know about Mark's
Yeah.
shared universe of serial monsters, which is wonderful.
It really is. So, yeah, I'd want Mark to write a Dragonfly, but I don't want to take him away from what he's doing either.
All right, so Wookie, final question from you.
If you could do a crossover with another superhero company with Dragonfly, which will?
That's a really good question. You know, Howard the Duck knows what it's like to be trapped in a world he never made, kind of like the Wrong Earth characters. He would be good. Batman would be awesome, wouldn't he? I mean, you wouldn't know which Batman to team him up with. I think the 70s Batman would be good with him because he's sort of like in between. I have never thought about this question for a moment in my life, so I'm really glad to be asked it.
All right, so Zico, final question from you.
Yes, I think that it's going to be a lot of people asking from Dragonfly and Dragonfly Man. You are a devil. When we were reading, we were thinking that's how Stinger that you're going to tell the Stinger's death, but it is probably that you tell it ahead. Something that I like in the comics are the contrasts. And we see that both universes are a bit different, but they are equal in some points. It's like you say, the extremes touch. The fourth wave that we got suspended, you have an order to continue publishing. You will release the Ahoy books in a progressive way or bit by bit. Can you tell us about it?
So you're talking about the two Earths of the Wrong Earth? Is that what I'm getting? I'm afraid the message came out a little bit garbled in the subtitles. But you're talking about the two Earths. Is that correct?
basically he was telling you that he really likes what you've been doing with the Wrong Earth and Dragonfly Man, because we were expecting something and you gave us another thing completely with Stinger.
Oh, thanks.
And
Yeah.
then if you have a plan of books to come out since the fourth wave was canceled due to the pandemic.
Right. Are you saying that you thought I was going to show you Stinger's suicide when he was cutting himself up in Dragonfly and Dragonfly Man? Yeah, I was trying to trick you with that. Stinger's suicide is a very sad thing.
And you did it well.
That might stay off panel forever. Now that I've tricked you with it. I do want Earth Omega to be, a gritty, kind of depressing place, but there's a limit, particularly nowadays. I think escapism is getting a new lease on life is something very important. And I could always change my mind, but I'd be surprised if, now that I've tricked you once, if I ever show you the actual circumstances.
All right, so we are going to some final questions, and we actually have one question from a member of the audience, from Eric Hernandez, and he's asking you, Tom, what is the title that has more readers in Ahoy Comics? Ahoy, not Hawaii.
Second Coming by Mark Russell.
Nice.
I knew what you were saying.
Sorry.
Second Coming by Mark Russell and Richard Pace and Leonard Kirk is our best-selling title. And that is followed by The Wrong Earth, I believe. And I also wrote our worst-selling title, but I'm not going to tell you what that was.
That is for us to guess, so don't worry. We can make bets about it, but we rather bet about the triumphs of your titles, the winning titles.
Yeah.
All right. So
Thank you. Great.
one final message that you have for our audience, Tom? No. Do you have a final message, Tom, for our audience?
Oh, do I have a final message for the audience? Mm-hmm. Yeah, hang in there. Do things to make yourself feel better. Pursue escapism. Be patient. Wash your hands. And it's a great time to read comics. We all have a lot of time to read comics, don't we?
Exactly, and wonderful. I will just remind the people from the audience that if you want to know more about all the wonderful work that the people in Ahoy Comics is doing, you can just, as I'm showing you in the screen, guys, you can just go and follow them on Twitters as Ahoy Comics Max in there. And also you can buy them in digital, don't worry. You don't have to go to a newsstand, you don't have to go to a comic book shop, but keep your orders in there, keep your subscriptions in there, but you can also get them in digital, and you can consult all the ways that you can learn more about this in comicsahoy.com. And finally, if you like the kind of work that we are doing in here, remember that this show is also supported in Patreon. You can follow us in patreon.com/D-Strip-Ando, where actually you have the link for this very video. You can see it in here. From the very beginning, you had it like 2 weeks ahead from the rest of the audience, and you get a lot of goodies like alternative covers, behind the mix shows, and the regular podcast. So remember that you can support us in there, because we have been doing a lot of this stuff for patrons, but it can also be yours if you support us in there. So with this, we are pretty much finishing this conversation. Tom, thank you very much, because this is the second time that we had the chance to talk with you, and it's the first time that we actually had the chance of you reading something that we are doing at this moment. It's not a comic, but you have the subtitles of the conversation. So
Can we apply for Ahoy Comics? Ahoy Comics.
Great. It's been a real pleasure, you guys. You guys are nice and friendly and into the material, and it's always fun to come by.
all right. Thanks, Tom, and hopefully we will have you in a future interview experimenting with a different format.
I hope so.
Thank you, and thank you to all the people
Take care.
who are watching us. Bye-bye.
Thank you.